NVIDIA's rising in the pre-market, extending yesterday's gains. The chip giant hitting a 6-week high now, overtaking Microsoft to become the world's second most valuable company behind Apple. Now we got these Foxconn headlines about a Mexico basically super plant, Jim.
Isn't this incredible? It's
make servers. They would make servers there using NVIDIA,
right,
using Blackwell chips.
They have to.
It's a little confusing.
Right, but I mean, you've got Foxconn. They're not doing out of the goodness of their heart. Fox chair,
No.
Young Liu saying that there was crazy demand. Now, last week it was insane demand.
Yes.
Now it's crazy demand.
Yes.
What's next?
Well, you know,
ludicrous.
Oh, Luda. Absolutely.
I spoke to Brad Lightcap, the COO of OpenAI, yesterday.
I love that interview.
And I thought there were a number of interesting takeaways. But, of course, as they move their model to this 4.0, where you can ask questions and the compute that has to be behind that, well, it comes to one conclusion. Take a listen. We don't have it ready. Sorry.
Well, what would if I had listened to what
Oh, now it is ready. Take a listen.
For the first time, you've got models now can use compute when you actually ask them a question. And the more they can think, the more they can use compute, the better their answer gets. And so much like a human, the more time you can take to think about something, generally the better the output's going to be. We think that paradigm is completely different. It has completely different implications for our infrastructure, completely different implications for how we scale compute. And I think we're only just at the beginning of understanding that.
Well, give me a little more here then. I mean, what does that mean for compute? Tell our viewers, does it mean you need more or less?
We think we're going to end up needing a lot more.
There it is, a lot more. We need a bigger boat.
No, honestly, come on. This is really an important interview.
Yeah.
Because along with the Guadalajara, what they're saying is the Blackwell, the problem in the last quarter was not demand. A lot of people are saying, listen, that was a cover. It's they can't make, the chips are very hard to make. It's called yield. And I thought your analysis, and I thought what's happening in Guadalajara confirms, look, it's more than just orders from Amazon and Meta and Tesla.
Without a doubt.
Okay,
and obviously Microsoft is a part of this as well. You guys have all seen this Oppenheimer downgrade this morning.
Yeah, please.
I know. Well, they talk about OpenAI losses. Again, it comes back to OpenAI reportedly expecting a loss of $5 billion, half flowing through Microsoft. They say they reiterate the streets likely overestimating near-term AI revenues, they say, as enterprise adoption and infrastructure remains a bottleneck, and you can see more from that. I want to make a point here on this, however, because I do have one my sources who owns the stock who says they think OpCo is mismodeling this as they're including $2 billion in OpenAI costs, but not revenue. They have the first quarter Azure up 30.5% year over year versus the company guide of 33%. That would be a 1.5 point miss. There's no reason to think they missed first quarter, so they're adding back that 3% of Azure growth to full year, and that gets you back to a number more or less in line with consensus. So again, at least there's some criticism of this OpCo note saying they're including $2 billion of OpenAI costs, but not the revenue associated with it. Remember, everything flows through Azure.
No, that's right.
No, OpenAI, all that money for compute, that's going to Microsoft. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's great analysis. I love the interview. Jeez, come on.
What do you think of NVIDIA, given the fact that we did get these Foxconn CEO comments that basically said this AI boom, quote, still has some time to go, and that the demand for NVIDIA's new chips, the Blackwell chips, is much better than we thought, according to that chief executive. I mean, it comes on the heels of NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang just last week on CNBC's Overtime talking about the demand being, quote unquote, insane.
At some point, that's going to slow down. And when it does, it's going to be pretty ugly. But for right now, I think the demand is insane. They're seeing very strong demand. If you look at the earnings estimates for the last several years, they just keep going up. And that's another one where you're actually paying a reasonable multiple for the earnings growth that is going to happen. And they are in the pole position, as we all know, strategically. So at some point that will slow down and there will be more competition and we will need to be more careful about what we're paying for it. But for right now, we're absolutely long NVIDIA.
All right, so don't look now, but the AI trade is back and it is picking up momentum. This is yesterday's heat map at the close. Look at all that red. What stands out? Yeah, you got it. NVIDIA up big. Micron was up. AMD. They're trying to save the market all by themselves, right? And today is really sort of more of the same, to be honest with you. This, of course, after the latest, almost every day there's an article like this. This is from Citi. They're reporting that data center CapEx is going to grow at least 40% next year. Remember, the question is these hyperscalers, would they keep making the investment? Citi says the adoption rate right now, this whole thing is just only in the third or fourth inning. Morgan Stanley sees $10 billion worth of Blackwell orders. They reiterated their target on NVIDIA at 150. This is just a short-term target. In the last month, NVIDIA is up 22%. By the way, all time it's up 302,000%. NVIDIA's had one heck of a rally, but why now? With me now, IO Fund lead tech analyst, Beth Kindig. And Beth, now, the Wall Street doubters were setting a narrative, and it seemed like it was working, at least the pressure was there. Now they're losing out the price movement, right? Because movement changes everything, and right now this thing is moving higher. Are you still a buyer at these levels?
Good to see you again, Charles. We are on the sidelines very temporarily to see if we can get NVIDIA a little bit lower before Blackwell hits. When Blackwell hits, that'll be your May earnings call. You want to be prepared and be fully allocated. If we can fully allocate again for perhaps the 10th time at lower prices, we're going to shoot for that.
In the meantime, Apollo released a chart the other day, a great chart. Data centers as a percentage of electricity in every single state. So most states benefiting from it, right? Some more than others. Look at Virginia, 26%. A data center is sucking up all that power consumption. It's just absolutely mind-boggling to me. And then, of course, you see what's happened with the utility stocks, right? They're on a tear. PE ratios for them never been this high before. Are there ways for the audience to invest in the electricity demand part of this?
Yes. When you look at the electricity demand side, nuclear is obviously gaining some traction, but I would encourage investors to continue to look more closely at NVIDIA. Their supply chain partners are driving down total cost of ownership. They are innovating throughout the full stack, and they will be the ones that reap the rewards. It goes back to this phenomenal run we've seen from NVIDIA. They are an order of magnitude ahead of everyone else on AI revenue. You could simply continue to focus on NVIDIA and you will do quite well, including for energy consumption. I
got you. And by the way, isn't that a big part of the Blackwell thing, that they really were able to, to make some adjustments with power?
What is your current read on the market and what's been a really noisy week or so?
I mean, Jensen is in New York today telling all the institutional investors that there will be return on investment for NVIDIA and calming people down a little bit. Because when I do my meetings in this last week, I'd say 3 or 4 times it comes up, hey, I think one of the biggest investment controversies is what will the return on all the capital spending be for the hyperscalers? And so you get the CEO of NVIDIA in town saying, calm down, and I don't know if guys went out and bought more or whatever, but that stock acts well.
They actually did.
Yeah.
I mean, they're buying
so
more. It's up 4%.
He's meeting all the big investors. He comes around regularly. He's doing his normal kind of Boston, New York trip, but I think he knows that one of the biggest 5 or 10 investment controversies across the whole stock market is, will companies see return on that? And then the answer he's telling you is yeah. I mean, after lunch meeting I went and looked at the healthcare stuff on NVIDIA's website just to get excited about some of the applications there. So for sure, I think that debate. People know that the quarter's going to be fine. It's not for quite a while, but that maybe they feel a little better about that debate than they did before he went around and came to town.
Do you feel a little better about this trade then? The overall mega cap tech trade. Now this is back above $3 trillion in market cap.
I still think that two things. There's 2 currents there. One, I think semis you want to be overweight for 1, 2, 3, and 5 years. Okay, I like the trade. I don't think I'm smart enough to know exactly what's 3 weeks. It pulls back 20, 30%. But NVIDIA was at 14. It went to 140. I wasn't smart enough to sell it down to 100. I'm not smart enough to. It's a long.
Okay, so you say
in the whole complex.
Then don't pay attention to the price action really in that space.
I don't think so. What I think happens with growth investing is only when you get in the top decile, the most expensive 10% on enterprise value to forecasted sales, then you get in that alarm area. But as you know, a lot of the semi companies' revenue is up a lot and their estimates are up a lot, and so the valuation isn't crazy for a lot of these names.
What do you make of this NVIDIA move? What's it about over the last couple of days?
Yeah, well, listen, I think we heard from Jensen a little over a week ago. I thought it was a great interview on CNBC, just talking about endless demand for the Blackwell chip. So when you hear CEOs talk in this manner about, this is the bellwether, this is exactly, this is what they mass produce, and there's endless demand for their product. it's just another catalyst for the stock. We're just being reminded of what's going on between the lines at NVIDIA. So for me, that's part of the jump that we've seen over the last few days. And I think it continues. I think they will jump over the bar from an earnings perspective. We'll hear from them late in the earnings season, as we always do. But I think it was just a little bit of a reminder of what's going on, at the company.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. The S&P finished the day up nearly 1%. NVIDIA had another fantastic day, finishing up more than 4%. And Tesla finished the day up about 1.5%. As for the Tesla swing trade, I intend to exit the majority of my swing trade position before the actual event on October 10th, just in case. Because I think this may turn out to be a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. If Tesla were to touch this lower trend line tomorrow, that would be around $237.80 per share. If we get a clean break below that trend line, then I would likely sell most of my swing trade position and lock in some gains just in case. Of course, I cannot tell you what to do with your positions because I'm not a financial advisor, but that is what I intend to do with my position, and I want to be completely honest and transparent with you about that. Now about NVIDIA. There was a lot happening today for NVIDIA. Today was day 2 of NVIDIA's AI Summit in Washington, D.C. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang was in New York today talking with investors. Foxconn announced a new NVIDIA superchip facility. Microsoft posted on X today saying that Microsoft Azure is officially the first cloud running on NVIDIA's Blackwell. And this is a big deal. Microsoft is NVIDIA's largest customer, and we now have confirmation from one of NVIDIA's customers that Blackwell is shipping and the platform is starting to be used by NVIDIA's clients. This is a very big deal. This means we are likely to see some Blackwell revenue start to show up in NVIDIA's next earnings report. Not guidance for Blackwell revenue, but actual Blackwell revenue on the books because NVIDIA's fiscal third quarter is still underway. So again, this is a big deal. So there was a lot, and I mean a lot, of positive news for NVIDIA today, and it's nice to see the stock trading higher. Looking at NVIDIA's chart on the daily time frame, we can see that the stock has very clearly broken above this resistance trend line. Now, I don't know what will happen with NVIDIA in the immediate short term. That being said, if NVIDIA were to trade higher in the short term, the next area I would be watching is the supply zone that stretches from $136.13 per share to $137.30 per share. That is the next zone of potential resistance up ahead. Tomorrow is the last day of NVIDIA's AI Summit in DC. I'm curious to see how the stock reacts, and I'm curious to see if we get any more important updates tomorrow. Personally, I am still cautious about adding to NVIDIA and cautious about adding to the rest of the market until we get to November 1st. This is because of the cycle NVIDIA typically moves in between earnings and the pattern that the market followed back in 2016 and 2020. Back then, the market began trading lower, starting in mid to late October, and reached a relative low on the Friday before the election. This year, that would be November 1st. Of course, patterns usually repeat themselves, but they do not always have to. So we will see what happens in the second half of this month, but I personally am choosing to be patient and cautious just in case. That being said, I am happy to see NVIDIA stock moving higher over the past week or so. Now, while I don't know what will happen in the immediate term, because anything could happen, I am bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA. I seriously would not be surprised if this company doubles over the next 2 years given NVIDIA's current growth trajectory and upcoming product cycles. And with that in mind, I'll share these 2 slides once again from NVIDIA's investor presentation. NVIDIA updated their investor presentation this past Sunday. So this first slide shows some of the components of Blackwell. And the reason I share this with you is because I want to reiterate that Blackwell is not just a chip. It is an entire platform. It's a supercomputer, and this provides a massive revenue opportunity for NVIDIA. Also, I think this next slide is very encouraging. This is the current product roadmap for NVIDIA. This year in 2024, we get the launch of Blackwell. Then in 2025, we get Ultra Blackwell. And later on, Rubin is scheduled to arrive in 2026. So again, I am bullish on the future of NVIDIA, and I think the company's brightest days are ahead. As long as things remain peaceful in the Pacific, and as long as none of the hyperscalers significantly reduce their capex spending on AI, then I think NVIDIA should be just fine for at least the next 1 to 2 years. At least that's how I view the situation. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.